That was Hibernia by Irish singer and composer Eimear Quinn. Now, she shot to fame in 1996, winning the Eurovision Award for Ireland. And since, she's gone on to have a successful music career, touring all over the planet and performing for some of the most important people in the world, including Queen Elizabeth II and Pope Francis. Now, she recently released her fourth solo studio album. It's called Ériu, an orchestral album of Irish music, and she joins me virtually in the studio. Eimear, it's such a treat to have you today. Before we talk about your new album, these are certainly unusual times that we're living in. How has the ongoing coronavirus crisis, how has that affected your musical projects?
Oh God, like everybody else in this situation, my avenues have just shut down, it's just become so limited. But, trying to, I suppose, make something good of it, and I'm focusing a little more on composition. So that's something I can control. I guess having released new music this year, particularly something of this scale, a huge orchestral project, it's a huge amount of time and resources invested into a project like that. And the whole idea is that you can take it to concert halls all over the place, all over the world. And that was the plan. But so now, obviously, those types of orchestral concerts, they have a very long lead-in time, but orchestras are anxious about when they might start booking again. So, the opportunities are actually strangely more spontaneous now for performance, something that's very last minute. So if people see something can work. So really, I'm focusing on improving my home studio so I can do a little bit more recording and just working on composition, finishing off some projects that I've been working on for a while. So it's okay. Life can continue.
Life continues, doing what you can with the time you have and the space you have. Now, Ériu is your fourth solo studio album, and as you mentioned, it's accompanied by the RTE Concert Orchestra. It's a beautiful record with 10 tracks. What does the title refer to?
Okay, yeah. Ériu is it's a kind of a triple goddess. There are three sisters, and they each competed to have Ireland named after them. And so Ériu was the one sister who was chosen as the mother, eponymous kind of mother goddess of Ireland. So the name for Ireland, as Gaeilge in our own language, is Éire. And so Ériu is the origin of that name. So she's our mother goddess.
So a tribute to Ireland there in that title. We're going to listen to a track off the album. It's called The Watchman. Take a listen.
No more shall I be afraid. No more shall I be afraid. The watchman watches over me. The watchman watches over me. He watches over me.
So that was The Watchman there off your album, Ériu. Now, you released that track at the end of April as a single. Now, much of the world was in lockdown there. It was a real message of hope amid a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty. And you just heard it there. You sing, "No more shall I be afraid. The watchman watches over me." Who is the watchman?
Oh. Well, the watchman, that's what it's about, really. It's about who is that person, the provenance, It's so strange with that song because the lyrics are written by Brendan Graham, who's, Ireland's kind of most successful lyricist. He wrote the lyrics also for the iconic You Raise Me Up, and he also wrote the lyrics for the song that I won Eurovision with, The Voice. He writes really succinct, really powerful lyrics that touch the heart, and he wrote those lyrics actually after the tsunami back in 2012, and he said that he was at an ecumenical service and that he saw everybody, I suppose, turning to whoever that was, that God, because it was no religion and it was all religions. And so the watchman is whomever it is that can make things continue for you, that you can have your reason to hang on to something, the hope, whatever it is that you can rely on. So for many people, that's God, whatever their religion is. For some people, it's a person who they lost, who they loved. It's neither male, it's neither female. For me, I know it's my mother-in-law who I lost last year. I feel her very deeply with me. And for many people who've heard this song, they feel a closeness of somebody who they've lost, and now they don't feel so alone. They don't feel afraid. And all of a sudden, this song came to life in this time, and it was a help to people.
It's such an important message, especially during these very uncertain times. Now, this is your first LP of music in more than a decade. What inspired you to come back to the scene, so to speak?
I suppose I've been just concentrating on performance rather than recording for a decade. And the reason being is that the other, apart from being an artist, composer and singer, the other thing that is really important to me in my life is being a parent. And so I had a kind of a long and checkered journey into parenthood. It wasn't straightforward. And so so I really wanted to honor that time with my children when they were very, very small, and juggling the life, because you need to have the satisfaction and the wholeness of embracing your life as an artist also. So the way I did that was through live performance rather than recording, because recording is very time consuming. It's a long days away, and it was a good balance actually. So I'm not the most prolific recorder of albums, as many people can see. If you're waiting on another album from me, you might be waiting a while. Hopefully not. Hopefully I'll get a little better at it now. But yeah, I think, it's like everything in life. It's about balance. And, I just didn't want to miss those precious early days with the girls. And so, you can take them to concerts with you, but you can't really take them to the recording studio. So that's why the gap was in between. This recording took a while because I didn't want to again take it in a big chunk. So we did it bit by bit, and we got there in the end.
Well, it's good to have you back on the scene, as we said. Now we're just going to move on to some other music news making headlines. The legendary American rock band Bon Jovi is releasing its 15th studio album called 2020, with tracks taking on gun violence, post-traumatic stress disorder, and the caustic political environment in the U.S. It's the band's most socially conscious work yet. Now, while in quarantine, the lead singer Jon Bon Jovi wrote 2 more songs for the album: American Reckoning, about the death of George Floyd and the impact of the Black Lives Matter protests across the globe, and Do What You Can, a tribute to those on the front lines of the battle against COVID-19. Take a listen.
They had against graduation. It ain't fair to Skype the prom. I guess at home in isolation. TV news is always on. When you can't do what you do what you can. This ain't my bed, it's just a thought I'm wanting to send. Down here we bend but don't break. Down here we understand. When you can't do what you do what you can.
Next, Irish pop outsider Roisin Murphy is releasing her 5th solo album, a glittery, cheeky LP called Roisin Machine. Now, the dance music supernova shakes things up again on this latest release, featuring pulsing house beats, sleek strings, and dance floor power. Not to mention funky music videos filmed in lockdown, like this catchy single, Murphy's Law.
I want this whole time. You see me almost every day. Every time I turn around, our love is stuck on replay. It's Murphy's Law. I'm gonna meet you tonight. Just one last like flight.
Now, some of the songs that are featured on your album, you've been singing them with an orchestra for a long time, but you hadn't recorded those orchestral recordings. Most obviously, The Voice, the song from 1996 that shot you to fame, you won Eurovision with. What was it like to revisit that song years later, and what does it feel like to sing it today?
Well, definitely to revisit it with orchestra is something else, because the song has this natural energy in it. I think it's because it's latanic. It's this phrase being repeated. It's got this amazing energy of being rooted in the ancient. But then the time it was written, it was really seizing that zeitgeist on the island that looked for peace in Ireland in the early to mid-90s. And so it's loaded with all of that passion for our culture. And then, as I say, the song builds and builds and builds. So when you have 40 other players in the room with you, that energy is building and building. There's never one time that I sing it that it's the same. It's like it absolutely breathes through me every single time I sing it. So with orchestra, definitely brings another dimension. Just the sheer human force behind me. Just, I suppose, transports me somewhere else. So it's been amazing to get to sing that again. Yeah.
Oh, it's such a lovely song. It's definitely worth listening to on your album, Ériu. Finally, American superstar Mariah Carey is dropping an album of never-before-released songs from 1990 through 2020. It's called The Rarities, and it actually follows on from Carey's recent sharing of rare archival material to celebrate her 30 years in music, as well as the release of her memoir, The Meaning of Mariah Carey. And we're going to leave you with a track off her album. It's called Out Here on My Own. But before I go, I want to thank my guest, Eimear Quinn. Thank you so much for being with us today. It's been such a treat to talk to you about your latest album, Ériu. And for more arts and culture news, head to our website and stay in touch on social media. Stay tuned to France 24. More news is coming up right after this.
When I'm down and feeling blue, I close my eyes so I can be with you. Oh, baby, be strong for me. Baby, you belong to me. Help me through, help me